We are going to have this panel in English as Maggie arrived from London. Hello.
Hi. Hi. Hello.
Maggie, so what do you do in life?
I kind of describe myself in 3 ways, but I ought to start by saying my name, Maggie Semple, is very important to me. It's part of who I am, because it has a history. And anyone I work with, either in my own businesses or I engage as a supplier, you have to understand who I am, because that will help you understand why I behave the way that I do. When I was 8, I have a sister and a brother. My sister and I were both born in London, from a family who originated in Scotland, the north of Scotland, part of the UK. And my father and mother came from a place called British Guyana, South America. And I come from an engineering background. My father, his father, and so on. I found out very early on that my sister had a fantastic voice. She could sing. I found out that the local church needed people who could sing. And because I couldn't sing, as well as my sister, I signed us both up for the church choir. And every time we sang for a wedding, we got paid. I saved my money, and my sister spent hers. So my attitude to money started very early on. In my family, where Semple is a Scottish name, it's part of a clan. In my family, the issue to do with money, particularly, was like this. We had a saying, money talks, but wealth whispers. So, if you have money, Maggie, and I have to tell you, I'm so English, it's unbelievable. So English. Not even British, so English. Everything understated, never quite as you think it might be, and with money, you never talk about it. Because to talk about money, when you have it, you whisper. You don't even have to say it. And it's crude. You don't talk about it. So it's really great to be invited to this conference. Thank you, Lenka, for inviting me to talk about these hard issues. So, 3 things I do. 1, I run a global consultancy that works with corporate organizations on ethics and decision-making. I work in hard industries, I work with the oil and gas sector, I work all over the globe, and I have associates all around the world. And we work with leaders, mainly men, who make tough decisions. And I challenge them on, what are you basing your decisions on? That's one thing I do. The second thing I do is I work in the judiciary. That is in the UK legal system. And we go all over the world, but the legal system, which is I appoint senior people as they're called QCs. It's a mark of being an expert in the judiciary. And there, my campaign, along with 4 other people, is, and we've set up by the government, is to actually ensure that more women get involved in the legal debate and in courts and in high courts, so that we have different perspectives when sentencing individuals. And the third thing I do is I run a fashion label. And for me, they're all linked. And they're linked because I am a very curious person. I want to know about every single person in this room. I won't get to know that, but I'm curious about you, and I'm curious about what I want to do. So my third business is about making clothes for women. Not the beautiful models that we might see, yes too, but for women who are normal, with normal shapes and so on. I think I'll pause there. But what do you do, Pavlina? Because we've only met on Skype, right?
Yeah.
And
we had a great talk,
yeah.
actually, already the first half an hour. Well, I'm a kind of a Renaissance person, so it's always difficult to say what I do, but to simplify, I spent almost 20 years in media, in big traditional national media like Czech radio and Czech television, where I hold different positions as a journalist and media executive. I was the director of new media division at Czech television too. But for last 5 years, I I run my independent business in social media, in making strategies for the media intelligence trainings in social media. I do a lot of stuff like moderating events and other things. And then I have my own project, which is called Elegantní Česko, Elegant Czechs. And that's where we meet. And I think what we have really in common is that we have such a range of interests that perfectly connect together, right? Because I feel it the same way. It is not something contradictory. It creates certain richness for me in my activities to be fulfilled because I've always liked a lot of things in my life since I was a little child. As you, I was so curious. My parents went crazy when I was searching for everything, books, old stuff, old clothes, everything. And I always wanted to know everything. And of course, I also like to meet people and create, if possible, harmony between people. Because I think there is a lot of tension in our societies nowadays. We feel it. I think I feel it more and more in past year and this year. I don't know why. I don't know if you agree or not. But as the societies are in so turbulent times, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of insecurities, and I think we need to connect, and we really on a very deep level want to connect. I can feel this from my meetings, either it's with women or men, that there is this hunger for community feeling, for more cooperation. This event shows that too. And there's a lot of activities like that nowadays in the Czech Republic. So if we talk about Beautiful and Confident, that is the title of our talk together, I would like to reply a little bit to Maya, the question, so why is that? What is that? That I promised to explain from my perspective. If we want to see the picture of our president, Tomáš Garrigue Masaryk, as we have this year 100 years from the beginning of Czechoslovakia, I will mention him because our project Elegant Czechs is about harmony and elegance in all different meanings of that word. When we started this project, I had a video where I was in the clothes, beautiful clothes from the 30s and in an old car at Vinohrady, and I was explaining what we want to do, and many people were like, wow, this crazy girl, what is she coming up with again? They didn't understand, maybe because they thought it would be about old stuff and maybe for them superficial because about clothes, and many people think it is superficial, but it is not. Maybe let's go back to President Masaryk for a while, please, because I want to pick up a man to show the principle we talk about. We started with the First Republic to show that it's what we want to do, about reviving the best values and the best of what this country and its people once knew in all forms, which means fashion, behavior, business habits, general lifestyles, the whole. And that was a very much the concept that President Masaryk represented, because he was somebody who really represented this ancient principle of kalokagatia, taking care of yourself in all different forms, like intellectual, but also physical, to be in a good shape and everything. So that's why I picked up a man as an example for us women, President Masaryk, that you see now. At this picture from an old magazine, it is dated 1931. He is, what age would you say? Maybe somebody can count. He is 81, ladies, at this picture. And it's during the summer where you can see how he looks wonderful. And what is beautiful is what the reduction says about him. You can't see it here, but it's on another page. And that's what they think about the president. He was an example. They said, well, you see our president, he is in such a good shape, he is looking well. But why? Because, and they explain his lifestyle, because he is going on a horse every day, he takes care about healthy food, he studies all the time, he's doing everything to be the best possible representative of the state, etc., etc. So at that time, this was the signal sent to the society as an example of nice lifestyle. And when we see the magazines today, it's very often like very I would say, relative, because on one page they are able to advise you something else than on page 22 or I don't know what. So now it's very mixed, and we are confused, I think, in values. So it's a lot about values and about something that I call something like anchoring yourself. Because now many people are kind of lost. We have many changes during our lives. And it's, of course, like these transitions from corporations to small businesses. There's many examples like that, I think. But much more changes and a lot of quite sharp changes in your life now. And I can see a hunger also for this, like, stating where you are, who you want to be, and then if you answer this question maybe with the help of somebody, and you don't need to be afraid of being helped, because it's difficult to do these transitions in life. But once you have it, you have a goal, you have a vision, and then you can much better understand what you really want to do, what you need to learn. People want to learn a lot today too, I realized. What you want to do in your free time. It means what kind of people you meet, and then together in harmony with all this comes clothes, because suddenly you are somehow oriented in who you are, what you want to do, which people you want to see really in your life, and how you want to structure yourself for the others. And this is about feeling yourself beautiful, confident, and having inner peace, which is something we all search for. So how does it relate to your philosophy?
Absolutely. So for me, in terms of my philosophy, being beautiful and confident is both an external thing and an internal thing. In the kind of business psychology area, it's enclothed cognition. That is, when you wear something that you feel good in, you perform better. But you need to have the thing inside that's about who you are, your values, how you live them, that actually makes the thing that you're wearing even better. So I'll give you an example. When I set up this business in my name, Semple, in 2010, I had someone who worked with me, and we spent 9 months exploring whether there's a market for what I was trying to do, what would the business be called, etc. And we found out that actually the business should be called in my name. Well, I have to tell you, I spent, before we set the business up, 3 months saying, I can't name a business after me. I'm not a celebrity. Why am I doing this? I must call it something else. I already have another business that I call something else, but I can't call this one something else. And then we said, no, okay, Maggie, get used to it. It's going to be called Semple. Now I can say my name any minute. But then I was really scared. We then decided, okay, if we're going to call it your name, let's check the domain names. So we went online. This is about the community and the connectedness about social media. Went online, and it looked as if one person had bought all of the domain names of me. Maggie.semple, maggiesemple.eu. I'm sure there's a maggiesemple.cz. I mean, I don't know. I went home to my husband and I said, you won't believe it. We're ready to go, and someone has bought all the domain names.
Was it him?
It was him. Excuse me. He bought the domain names for me 5 years ago. An act of love. And he knew that I would one day want my name. So if nothing else this afternoon, buy a girlfriend or a daughter or whoever, a child, their domain name, because you will never know when they need it. My domain name now sells, apparently, quite a bit in other countries. And there's a whole IP, that's another issue, around that and what your name is worth. So for me, that connectedness, your values, who you are, if you know who you are or you're aiming to find yourself, start with your own name. Whether it's your maiden name, your married name, I don't mind. And buy it. It's very cheap, and give it worth.
Yeah, I very much agree. I see this when I train not only women, but also men. But with women, it's much more often, I would say, with social media. And we start with the same question, you know. Who are you? What are you able to do better than the others in your field? Describe what you do. Sometimes, you know, women have they are paralyzed if they need to talk for 1 minute about this. I always recommend to do this little exercise in front of the mirror for 1 minute, saying these things loudly, saying it with what you have succeeded in. Of course, there's a lot of problems still everybody is fighting with, as the ladies before were describing, but you need to actively be searching for the good things in your life and say it loud. Today, this was great, I did this, I succeeded, it was perfect, it was great that I was able to make it. Because we are very much often, I think, prone to underestimate these good things that happen in our lives and only see the negative ones. What we do is a lot of things. We do a lot of education because, as I said, people want to educate themselves now. And that was a good sign for me. I didn't expect that when we started this project. We do things like Day in Other Times that helps us to realize where we are now when we go by this experience, like having different hair from the 20s or 30s and makeup and authentic clothes from that era that you wouldn't believe. If you have something from Zara, maybe in 3 weeks it's over. But these things lasted for like 80 years, and it's incredible. If you have it on you, you start to think about it, you start different discussions with the others when you meet them in the group, and that provokes you to think also about what we have now. So these days in Other Times became very popular, and I think it's not about us saying to ladies or gentlemen, do this or that, because you won't be surprised. This is a technology. When you change these clothes, you immediately start to behave differently. And that's a perfect exercise too. And you would be maybe surprised. And so you don't need to say anything, and I immediately see people like when a man sees his wife that he is used to see every day, in this, and she's so beautiful, like from an old movie, he starts to be gentleman by himself. You don't need to force him. And so that's one of the things where you can very much reflect on this. But we don't want to build this as a kind of museum, because the main idea of Elegantní Česko is that we can pick up the best from our know-how, values of this country, and think if we can revive it, if we can live it now in modern forms. So, for example, what you see here now is the third part, what we do, and it is the collection that was called Costume, a Woman's Best Friend. It comes from the First Republic too, because then women didn't have so many clothes like we have in our houses nowadays. They basically had one basic thing that was the classical costume, and then a few blouses or shirts, and then little stuff, accessories, and stuff like that. And they were very much able to combine it and create variations. And that's the art also of being elegant. It's not always about having so much money. It's not about being so rich. It's about taking care of yourself and trying to give time also to yourself and thinking about your inner and outside harmony. So when we were creating this collection, it combines the old and the new, like you see on this picture, for example. The lace is from the First Republic, and the blouse itself is a new one, and it perfectly goes together. This was created by young designers that we chose, and they were in contact with the people like Professor Zdena Bauerova, who was the icon of her, our fashion design in the 20th century. She was preparing stuff for example, the wives of presidents, etc. And this interaction between this lady, who is one of the last ones that remembers the most famous times of this craft in the Czech Republic, and her interaction with young designers was amazing, because it was beautiful to see how these young guys who love this, who have passion for this, want to know, they are eager to go to details and find stuff. Talking about these are costumes designed by her, but we can see also, maybe if we go through the pictures, one of the sets that were done by the young designers. This is the day in other times, as you probably assume. But I want to mention one which was for business ladies. When we were preparing this, we called it a gentle businesswoman, because the businesswoman is very often connected with women who are like hard and only thinking about their careers and stuff like that. This is a part of it. But there's also a dress, which is really romantic, and the idea was always to have a set, to have pieces that you can combine together like in those old times. But what was the thing I wanted to mention was that we were talking to women a lot. We had dinners with them, we had meetings with them, and we were asking, how do you live? Because it's not the same like then when they changed their clothes 5 times a day. Nowadays we don't have so much time. So that's why, for example, we had this dress called this one, which is a romantic, you see, but it goes with jacket, which is quite strict for the office. So if you are sitting in the office, you are like a manager, but the dress is called a dinner with your partner. And the idea is that you simply take off the jacket and go outside in the evening, and you are a princess. And this kind of little tricks that works for women who are active, who don't have time, etc. What about your designers?
Yeah, so for me,
you have these little...
Yeah, mannequins. So this is an example of me taking my values through everything that we do. We have an online magazine, for example. You just Google, you'll find us. This magazine, we have 10 issues, but this year we launched it on the afternoon before International Women's Day, the 7th of March. Just launched it on the platform, and overnight we got 150,000 views. Okay, we hadn't even social media'd it at all. The next day, International Women's Day, the 8th, by the afternoon, we had 530,000. Today, we have something like 2.7 million views. So first of all, I think the numbers aren't real. And then we investigate and interrogate, and they're pretty robust. So there's something about women telling their stories to others, which is what we write about, that captures the imagination of more and more women. So the mannequin, this, is an example. She has a bust, she has a bottom, like most of us have. And when I wanted to make the mannequin, this is 3D printed, by the way, I took a gaming app and designed the woman with a bust of this size, waist of this size, so she's not a doll. And that's how I view women's bodies. We're not dolls. When I grew up, I'll just say this now, in London, but probably all over the world, there were very few dolls that looked like me, color-wise. There was Cindy, or Barbie. She had blonde hair and long legs, and etc. My dolls, in fact, they're not dolls, I have to say to the Americans whenever I go there, they're not dolls, they're mannequins of human proportions, and that's important to me. Another thing is, the way that I talk about beautiful and being confident is, I'm not very good at coaching or mentoring other people. I know I'm not very good. I get too interested in you, and then I say about me, and I'm not listening. That's me. I get very excited. But I tell you what I do, in other words, in other ways, I buy from other women. And that's how I generate wealth for other women. So my shoes, for example, made by a designer in London, young woman, I buy her shoes. I like them actually, that helps, but I buy her shoes. So again, another action for all of us is, today, why not look around you to your next neighbor, find out what they do. You don't have to commit to money now, but just have an investment in her business by just referring her, if nothing else. But I'm not a very good coach or a very good mentor, but I'm upfront about that, and I know it.
Maggie, I wanted to ask one question. During the First Republic, the fashion business was really in a big boom here. It was amazing, the salons and everything. Now, it's crisis, maybe, I don't know if you are familiar with that, but it's a total crisis of the craft. It's so difficult to find people who remember those old techniques and are able to do it in the highest quality. we were trying somehow to care about this and save some of these techniques, and we will continue probably doing this. One would say that United Kingdom is a paradise for that, but you were mentioning the situation is not so beautiful, neither.
No, absolutely not. So I have a place in Covent Garden in London, centre of London, and we have a little production unit where I'm constantly looking for people who live in London, it's preferable, but in the UK, who can actually sew, who can cut material and can sew. I can design, who can sew. And that is a craft that we have lost in the UK. Some universities are now doing more and more, that's good, but it's too late for me. So quite a few of my women, because women make my clothes, I actually only employ in this business only women, but that's another issue. But quite a few of my women come from outside of the UK. They travel to London, they're there, and they...
From where?
Well, I have a Lithuanian lady, I have a lady who is I'll say Indian in that way. They're people that come from far afield, possibly, to live in London, and that's how I find them, really. But the skill shortage is a big issue for us and for me, and it's an industry that is trying to revitalize itself, but it has a little bit more to go.
We here can see from our experience that the interest of ladies is growing because it brings an opportunity to, when you have something bespoke, to go through a totally different process than just to be tired and go to some chain and quickly buy something and then you don't even wear it. This is a totally different process that takes a long time, but you can meet your designer, you can be in interaction with him or her, you can have some added value actually. That's what our ladies like, that they help something meaningful also in their life by buying something different, and they help to save this tradition too. And so I can see here it's changing actually. Yeah. Because here the food was a big topic for 25 years, but in this area I think it's only now that it's starting to change.
And let me just say one last thing, in terms of Pavlina, just rounding this up. You talk about the experience of bespoke wear, which is what we do. We measure you, we design, and so on. There are three sorts of women who I meet in my atelier. One, they're all business ladies, they're all women who run their businesses and they're partners in law firms, they're doctors and bankers and so on. Three types of women. One, she comes in, she is so tired, she falls asleep. Not because I'm boring, she just sits down on a chair and for 20 minutes, it's her time, she falls asleep. Two, the second woman, she comes in and she cries. I just say things like, so what else do you do but work? And she just looks at me and she cries. And the third is someone who is so busy and so stressed, she is rude. And my team look at her and think, oh, we're not going to like making her clothes because she's a bit rude. But this is what we can do to ourselves. And I guess it's about, actually at the end of the day, back to that thing about who you are, the calmness of who you are, surely, and how you can turn that into something quite positive. And what you wear on the exterior is your calling card. When you walk into a room, if you're in a boardroom, and you look comfortable, you'll be received better than not looking comfortable.
So our eternal goal is to search for harmony.
Absolutely. Thank you.